just a couple of questions here. Vice Admiral Buck, you talked about that whole person approach, and you talked to me about that before when I came on out to your academy. And you talked about in terms of objective and subjective, it's a mixture of different types of factors in there. I guess the question I have to you is it possible to identify the best potential leaders for leading our military force in this country through only test scores and objective factors, or do you feel like you'd be missing something there?
I feel like we'd be missing something. Both the objective factors and the subjective factors are really, really important. It kind of defines what that whole person assessment, every aspect of that person we want to assess. Not all of that is done objectively. Some of it you have to hear what other people think of that individual as a citizen, as a human being, their character, which is really, really important. To be a military leader is a man or a woman of good, solid character. So a teacher's assessment from school, an English teacher, a math teacher, they talk about their performance in English and math, but quite often they also talk about that individual's character, what kind of human being they are. We also get a subjective assessment from what we call our blue and gold officers. It's a cadre of volunteer, former alumni in most cases, that also do interviews with our candidates and tell us what type of individual they think they are. That's a subjective measure. Also, we look at their background. Are they the first in their families to go to college? Are they first-generation Americans? Have they overcome some very unusual adversity in their life, which might give us an indication of their resilience? Are they the son or daughter of a diplomat and served abroad in many other countries that might bring that type of neat cultural competency experience? So those are subjective factors that are really, really important to allow us to add to the assessment that the objectivity also gives us.
Thank you. That's very helpful to just further tease that out. And Lieutenant General, I want to bring you into this conversation because you also talked about that whole person approach. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just think about this as not just the applicant that you're trying to develop, to identify here. You're trying to develop leaders to be a leader in this country. So in the same way, I would say when it comes to leadership, is there some objective formula or objective standard by which you can determine who's a good leader or a bad leader, or do you feel like there needs to be some subjectivity in that as well?
Sir, I absolutely feel there needs to be subjectivity. That's the art of pulling in the right people, to look at the whole of their life experience, to see how they've performed in different situations, so that we can better understand many of the things that Admiral Buck just talked about, but really what we can expect of them in their development at the Air Force Academy.
Because I thank you for that. And over the course of just listening to the last hour 40 of this, I just feel like we're trying to put at odds concepts that don't have to be mutually exclusive. That we can talk about objectivity, subjectivity, recognizing that there is an ability for us to package that and look through that and use our best judgment in that capacity. And in the same way, I feel like we're constantly feeling like meritocracy and diversity are at odds with one another. Again, two concepts that I feel like we keep putting against each other over the course of the time that we've been in this room. But it doesn't have to be the case. That pursuing diversity, pursuing that effort to be reflective of the country doesn't mean that we're watering down leadership, as you pointed out in the previous point. I'd just like to end with General Gillen. I felt like your last points when we were having the previous question line just really stuck in my mind, and I just feel like so much about that is about how do we prepare, how do we develop leaderships, and part of it, I think what I took away is, we have to prepare them for everything. Is that right? And you're preparing them for everything, not just physically, but also mentally, intellectually, that you'd want them to not encounter a new idea or a new school of thought out in command if you have an ability to kind of prepare them for that ahead of time. Am I correct? Is that some of what you're getting at?
Yes, sir. I think it's about having the skills and the tools, and that's through development. I think that our cadets at West Point are immersed in character development and leadership. I would submit that that's what their degree is in, because every single day they're exposed to character development and leadership in order to be able to at the conclusion of 47 months, graduate and lead young men and women in our Army specifically.
Yeah.
And as our vision as the preeminent leadership institution in the world, what's key to that is that it's about developing leaders over the course of that 47 months. They don't necessarily come in as defined as such. We provide those skills and capabilities.
Thank you. I yield back.